Hey everybody, welcome back to Darvanalee Design Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today we are here for a sewing tutorial. Today we are here to make this cute little pen holder to organise our drawer. So let's get started. Good morning or good evening everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I show you how to make this cute little pen holder for your drawer. Last fortnight we made a Wonder Clip bowl and I had a lot of emails and messages and whatnot asking me if I could show how to make one to hold pens and the sizes and all that sort of stuff. So basically that's what we're here to do today. So if you're new here and you like sewing tutorials, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up if at any time you're enjoying it. And so let's get into it, shall we? Alright, so basically you are going to need your general sewing supplies. You are going to need something to poke your container out. You're going to need some sort of pencil or friction pen or anything to mark it, a Chalko pen or anything like that. You're going to need a sharp pair of scissors, some thread snips, and of course you're going to need a rotary cutter to cut out all of your fabrics and everything. And you're going to need a variety of rulers. Now to cut out my fabrics, I used a 12 by 12 ruler. That was what I needed and it made it nice and easy to cut them out. And then from there I just used my 6.5 by 12.5 ruler. Now as we did last time we were here, we made the Wonder Clip one. We're using the same products as that one. If you haven't seen that video, I'll card it up the top for you and also link it up down below. So we're using foam and we're using Shapeflex 101. Okay, and we're using I've just got some scrap fabric. I just dove into my scrap bin again and pulled out some fabric and I had enough to get 2 pieces out of this one. So I thought, why not use up some of these scraps and start organizing my drawers because they're a little bit of a shambles right now. All right, so these measurements are for both your lining and your exterior fabric. Is along the short end, that is 8 inches in width, and I'll just double check that because sometimes I can say things and I'm wrong. Yes, it is 8 inches, and then it's 12 inches in height. And you need that for both your Shapeflex 101, your foam, which I'm using a Matilda's own fusible foam. But if you've got, say, any soft and stable sew-in, all you need to do to attach it to your fabric, and you really need to attach it to your fabric, is just do 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and that'll hold your fabric onto it, and then you can make your markings. For me, I have a fusible fleece. It's a fusible foam that I've just got some scraps of and I'm just trying to use up as well. And Matilda's own comes in single-sided, double-sided, fusible, and also sew-in as well, and you can find links for all of that sort of stuff down below. Okay, now once you have got your fabrics cut and your foam and interfacing, you want to follow the manufacturer's directions and place that onto your fabrics. As I said, for your exterior fabric, if you've got a sew-in one, you'll need to do 1/8 of an inch. Now I'm fused, so I'm not doing that step today, so don't forget to do that. And then for your interfacing, I highly recommend that you use a woven interfacing. I'm today using Shapeflex 101. It's my favorite interfacing. It is a Pellon product and I've never had it falter on me, so just be aware of that. I prefer to use woven, especially for this, because if you use a non-woven one, it makes it a little bit difficult to work with. And I've done it with a couple of different non-woven ones and I just had trouble getting it to sit nicely, to get the shape of it, and I ended up just tossing them in the bin because I didn't like them. Alright, so once you've got them fused on, you're going to take your ruler and you're going to take whatever marking tool you're using, and you're going to place your ruler on the 2.5 inch, the edge of the fabric on the 2.5 inch mark, and you're going to do this all the way around. Okay, you've done that to your lining. You're also going to do it to your exterior as well. Okay, so once you've done that, what you're going to do is you're going to get your scissors, and these really need to be sharp scissors, and we don't use our rotary cutter because you could overshoot. I always use my scissors for this step. And you're going to cut out all the corners on the line. Okay, you can just disregard those, put them in the bin, or you can use them for hexagons. It doesn't matter that it's got the interfacing on. Okay, and disregard those, don't need those anymore. Okay, so now we have these, our two pieces all cut out. What we need to do next is we need to sew on the lines that we can still see on our foam. And you don't necessarily have to do it for your lining, but I like to do it for my lining because it makes it easier for me to just know where it's all got to sit and all that sort of stuff. All right, so let me just get the sewing machine ready, and I just use a construction stitch, which means that it is on its default, which is about a 2 to a 2.2. And I'm just going to stitch all the way around, and I'm going to do it for the lining as well. Okay, so now you can see here that by stitching the foam, it actually makes the box sit a little bit nicer. Okay, but now what we need to do is sew our pieces together. So with the right sides touching, we're just going to fold this over and grab our wonder clips, which I prefer to use when I'm using the foam, or you can still use pins, but it's a little bit trickier. And all you're going to do is you're going to fold that onto itself, and then on the opposite corner you're going to do the same thing, and then we'll go to the sewing machine, and like we did with this one, we are going to backstitch at the beginning, and we're going to come down to this line and not stitch onto it, but just come down to it and do a backstitch there. So you can see here I've done a back stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I've done a back stitch at the end, and what that does is that just gives us a nice little corner. Okay, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing for all of our corners, and we'll do exactly the same thing for our lining as well. Just make sure that all your raw edges are lining up and it's sitting nice and square. Okay, so once you've got all of your sides stitched up, you want to just get rid of any long threads that might be getting in the way. Same with your exterior as well. Okay, then we're going to turn that in the right way, poking out all our little corners, and you can see they're all sitting really nicely. Okay, another long thread. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to place our foam piece into our lining, and we're going to line up all of our seams. And just to reduce the bulk in there, we're going to press those seams open with our fingers and pop some wonder clips on there. Again, you can use pins, but it is a little bit tricky. And you can see there that I've just got that, and I've just run my finger down, and the seam is open on either side. Okay, and just make sure that you're nesting those seams up. Okay, so once you've got that done, we're on one side, and I do it on the long side. I'm just going to make a little bit of a mark, and I'm going to make it about 2.5 inches because it's a little bit trickier to get these through. So I'll just put a mark there, and then about 2.5 inches, maybe a little bit more. I'll put a mark there. Now that's going to be ample room to pull our foam through, because this is a lot smaller than this one. Last week we only had a 2-inch gap. This time we've got a little bit bigger. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to head to the sewing machine. Now you won't be able to get this onto your free arm or anything like that, so we're going to just put it straight under the needle. Going to leave your stitch as a default, which is about a 2.5. Okay, or 2.3, depending on the machine. And you're just going to start at one of your marks. You're just going to squash that down and get that under the machine. Okay, it doesn't have to be right on the mark either. And then you put your needle in the down position. And then you're going to do a back stitch. I do a couple back stitches. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch quarter inch seam allowance all the way around until I get back to my other mark. Okay, and then when I get back to the other mark, I'll do a back stitch there as well. Now when you come up to your seams, just go a little bit slower. Okay, if you're not sure if your machine can handle it or not, just go a little bit slower. Okay, and if you need to, just hand crank it, it'll still stitch fine. Make sure that your seams are pressed open with your finger, and you may need to use your tailor's awl just to help you get that to hold that down as you go through the machine. Okay, now it is very easy to sew through the foam. It's not, it may seem like it's really thick, but it's very soft, and it basically just goes through like butter, really. All right, and then you can see here, well, you might not be able to see, but anyway, I've come up to a seam and I've just left my needle in the down position, and I've just adjusted a bit, and I'm just following the edge of the fabric and doing a quarter inch seam. And having those seams pressed open with your finger and tailor's awl does make it very easy to go through. Just keep moving everything out of the way as you go. And the tailor's awl is a really handy tool. It just helps you to get everything through without having to get your fingers in the way. Okay, so we've come around to the end. Don't forget to do a back stitch there. We've come back around to our next mark. Okay, that can come out of the machine now. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is get rid of any of our long threads. We have our opening here, so we're just going to separate the lining from the exterior, and then I just reach in and I go to my furthest corner, separating the fabrics from one another. I'm not separating the fabric from the foam, I'm just separating it from the lining, and then I'm just going to push that all the way through. Okay, and then I just making sure that everything is stitched down okay. I just give it a bit of a tug at each seam, and that just gets them to sit a little bit nicer when we roll it over. And then all I'm going to do is push that lining into the little container. If you've got any long threads that are getting in the way, this is the time to get rid of them before we do our top stitching. And just grab your little poking tool and get those corners to all come out. Okay, make sure they're all out nicely, and then just fold it in on itself. And we're just going to roll that down. And I like to use my Wonder Clips because it just makes it easier to hold it all nice. And what we're going for is we're lining up our lining with the edge of it, so our seam is sitting on top of our foam. Okay, and then just pop a Wonder Clip as you go, and I just use my fingers at this point just to roll it over and manipulate it. And the good thing about using the foam is when you finger press, it actually starts to hold in place, so it makes it nice and easy for you. And we just keep rolling around, putting our Wonder Clips on. And I like to have one on every corner of the box as well. Alright, so we have now come down to our opening. So at this point I'm just going to fold the foam in first so it's even with my fabric that I've already stitched. Okay, and I will pop a couple of wonder clips on there just to hold it in place. Okay, so you can see I get a nice straight line. You might have to fiddle with it to get it to sit properly, but that's okay. We're going for a nice finish along the top. It's not my favourite way to close up, but working with these boxes, it's the best way to do it. And then I'm going to fold in my lining. I'll put a third wonder clip there just to hold that foam because it's a little bit, likes to spring back out again. And then I'm just going to fold in my lining fabric, and then I'll just pop those wonder clips onto there. And I look at it from this angle because then I can see if it's lining up nicely. So you can see here that this one's just moved a little bit. So I'm just going to poke that back in a bit. And then I can lay that nice and flat. Okay, and my lining is all nice in there as well. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch. Now, when we come around, we're going to have a little bit of bulk at our corners, and that's okay. Again, just take it nice and slow. We're going to do an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. We're going to lengthen our stitch length now to a little bit longer because that gives us a nicer finish on our top stitch. Okay, I usually go to a 3.5. It depends on the machine. But just do a little test first and see what length of a top stitch that you like. And you want it to be a bit longer. You don't want it to be small like the construction stitch that we've just done. Okay, we want it to be a little bit longer because what that means is, it'll go through the machine nicely because we do have a little bit of bulk up in our seam here. And also it just makes it look nice and straight on the bottom and on the top. So if you've ever done a top stitching where it looks a little bit like it's a little bit zigzagged, just lengthen your stitch length. It just means it's just a little bit too short and it's struggling to get through all the layers. Okay, and if you do that, you'll get a much nicer finish with your top stitch. Okay, and you don't want to go to like a basting stitch. I generally, a rule of thumb, and I've got 3 different machines and they're all different, but they swing between a 3mm and a 3.5mm which is a nice top stitch. This one here is about a 3.5mm. All right, now I don't generally like to start on the opening or anything like that, so I'll start away from that, and I like to also start in a seam if possible. Okay, and it just gives me a nicer finish. That's just a personal preference. Wherever you like to start, that's fine. But for me, I like to start in or as close to a seam as possible. And remember, we are doing an 1/8 of an inch. You want to leave your needle in the down position as well. Okay, and then that way you'll just, if you need to readjust, you're not going to move your needle from where you're stitching. Okay, just move everything out of the way. We just want to stitch it right up along the top here, and that is an 1/8 of an inch we're going to use. So nice and slow. We don't want to go super fast, and I don't back stitch when I begin. I back stitch when I end, so I don't get that little bird's nest. And I just slowly go around and taking it easy when I come up to the seams. If you haven't changed your needle before, you should really change your needle. It just will help if it's nice and sharp. Okay, so just keep going around and just use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so we have come all the way around. We've backstitched at the end, and we've done an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. You can do a little bit thicker one if you find that a little bit easier. You can go and do a 1/4 inch one. That's neither here nor there. But let's get rid of our long threads and clean up our exterior a bit, poking it out. All right, now is the time that I'm going to press it. So then once I've turned it back out the right way, just to give it its shape, I just give those seams a little bit of a pinch, and that will give you your box shape. All right, so once you've pinched all your corners out, you're ready to use your little container, and you can see here I've got pens in one and sewing supplies in the other. Now, if you like this video today, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and if you're new here or a returning viewer and you've yet to subscribe, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it. But if you're looking for some extra tutorials, head on over to our Patreon. We've got several different tiers there with lots of different things happening over there, but we do bag tutorials, we do sewing tutorials, finishing class, and a whole multitude of other things over on our Patreon. So if you're looking for some extra content from Darvanalee Design Studio, you'll find all that information underneath this video and also on the end cards. But that is it from me today. If you've got any suggestions for me, make sure that you email me at askme.diddies@gmail.com, and I will be happy to accommodate your request if I can. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a wonderful day and happy sewing, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.